Michael Saylor is doing such a fantastic job. He's like a really good salesman. I think a lot of companies will go broke actually from not going on a Bitcoin standard. It's like playing Temple Run. You remember the game on iPhone, Temple Run? There's an old game and you're running from this monster, but you're always running from this monster. Constantly, it's just always behind you. That's what inflation, or that's what basically our economy is right now. Unbelievable. I feel like I'm blessed to be, in this space as early as it is. Like even these banks, they're going to get on Bitcoin standards. Yes, they got off the wrong start, but there's a lot of money to be made there. It's exciting. This is optimistic shit, I'm just so long at the moment, dude. Like I cannot tell you just the optimism I've got in my soul.
Michael Dunworth, the housing bubble is on the brink. Inflation, it's suffocating the economy. We have interest rates. They're keeping millions locked out of opportunity. Meanwhile, Bitcoin, it's racing towards $100,000. But the banks, they're shutting down the accounts for people buying it. So here's the question, mate. Are we standing on the edge of a financial revolution, or are we literally on the brink of economic chaos?
We are on the brink of a hard fork in history. Literally, in our history, it's like, Bitcoin has hard forks. We are about to hard fork onto a Bitcoin standard as a planet. And I really mean that. It's going to start with the companies that start migrating their units of account over to Bitcoin. This is going to be humongous. But the cool thing is, Bitcoin's not your competitor. It's your biggest ally you could ever have. So if you're Microsoft, if you're an incumbent, like one of the former, big tech codes or whatever, get involved. This is a gift from God almost, this thing. It's that good, that resilient, that strong. Get with it. You've got to adapt or die. Literally adapt or die, because you owe it to, whether you're shareholders or anything, banks, everyone owes it to their stakeholders, I would say, to be knowledgeable or understanding of Bitcoin if they're not already. And they should be already by now. Like it's been a long way. So yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Mate, it's going to be really interesting. Saylor just dropped like a 3-minute video for the Microsoft board to help them understand the value concern in Bitcoin. I want to dive into that. But before we do, you built a $1.5 billion Bitcoin and crypto payment service called Wire. We saw Mark Andreessen, he's just on Joe Rogan, talking about these 30 tech founders being secretly debanked. Like, what was your experience while you're building the exchange with people being debanked there?
Guys, deep banking is like, this was 30. They said 30. We ran an infrastructure company that provided bank accounts and on-ramps and payments to every crypto platform there is. Every single one of them that I know of could not get a bank account. Our whole service was to help enable people to get bank accounts, account and routing numbers. We literally had that as a service offering, because it was so valuable. It was such a not like profitable wise, but it was such a need of all of our customers. So every person building anything in Bitcoin, anything in crypto, whether you're a brokerage, custodian, or anything, you would always struggle to get a bank account because Bitcoin was the boogeyman. And so these guys would quickly shut everything down, or, if they wouldn't shut it down, they wouldn't let you open an account in the first place. Even naming your bank, like I've got like I tried to name one of my bank accounts Bitcoin or Bitcoin SMSF because I was doing self-managed super fund. The bank said, no, you can't open that account. I was like, this sounds so bullish for you guys long term. Good luck. And so, but one of the things that people like, I know the conversation around Operation Choke Point and all that sort of stuff and what Mark Andreessen was talking about, they're all very fair and it's all accurate. Like, it's not some conspiracy theory. I know I can name them, like every single company you've ever heard of. I'll tell you what their bank account was. Stripe, for example. Stripe payments, right? Yeah. So everyone has been so like, oh, how do you get ahead in the payments land? You need to be cozied up with someone that knows someone somewhere, something. Like basically you need special treatment. Like, if that makes sense. So Stripe was sort of a white label of Wells Fargo. And that was like the biggest moat you could ever ask for as a payments company is a really strong banking relationship, because that was the moat. So no one could get bank accounts in Silicon Valley. I think the only one that had one was Coinbase. And that was they were really early on to Silicon Valley Bank. And then you had Barry Silbert and his team invested in Silvergate. And they sort of said, hey, there's a huge opportunity here. If you do the work and lift some fingers, we might actually be able to onboard a lot of crypto companies. And so you onboard a lot. They did that and they created a lot of things and everyone went to Silvergate. And that was sort of, Silvergate's a reliable banking partner. No one has to lie that they're doing, payments and not Bitcoin or crypto, like, because these boogeyman words you try and avoid saying because you're like, oh, they're going to overlook it and they're just going to shut us down. And so you've got the Silvergate accounts. They started opening up. Now, the problem is when you're processing payments, like as an exchange or a brokerage, you're taking money from person A and paying it out to person B. Now, as a bank, that's a really bad customer to have. And the reason why is because, one, the bank's assets under management isn't growing. So you're just taking money from person A to send it to an exchange to convert it to Bitcoin. So you're not holding a big reserve with them. And they want that because they want money, obviously. So there's not much in it for them there. And then one of the biggest part that no one talks about is even all this KYC. So with the banks, right, you've got to go through all these KYC and AML hoops. You're jumping over everything. You've got to upload selfies and all that sort of stuff. That is all for risk mitigation. So all the AML and KYC stuff, if we got rid of every single KYC and AML law today, like I said, they abolish it all, you would still have to do as much song and dance and selfie uploads and stuff from every exchange, because they don't ask you to do all these things for their sake. They ask you because they're going to take that. When you say, hey, I'm going to make a payment, I'm depositing $1,000 to my exchange account. When you do that, you're actually getting a loan from the exchange, because that funds in America, it's not a good funds model, which means any person making a deposit can theoretically reverse that payment 5 to 7 days later. So when I let you deposit money into my exchange, I need to make sure it's you behind the screen. And so that's why you've got to do these selfie uploads where you're standing there with today's date and dance on one foot and hop on one leg and drink a cup of milk while you're doing it. Whatever it is, you've got to go through all these hoops. And so as you're going through these hoops, it's just interesting to see, like, this banking issue is actually the root of the issue is the payment methods, because all of this information collection is all for recourse mitigation. So that when I go to Coinbase and I say, hey, or I go to my bank and I say, hey, I didn't deposit $1,000 to Coinbase. What are you talking about? And they go, oh, sorry about that. We'll take that money back from Coinbase right now. And that's what they do. They'll take it back from Coinbase. So Coinbase is just, you've deposited $1,000 and they've sold you some Bitcoin. You've taken the Bitcoins and now they called the bank and said, sorry, I didn't do that. So that's fraud, right? That's chargebacks. That's the big root of the issue, though. That's what people need to understand, because all the AML laws, like in America, right, a money services business, the only information you need to take, name, date of birth, address, and last 4 of the SSN, and maybe phone number, but it's very light. Like, that's not what your onboarding experience is like, right? It's always photos and selfies and shit like that. And so the reason why there's all this other stuff on top of it is because those AML laws and stuff are one thing, but the fraud and chargeback is actually the biggest part. Because when I go to the bank and they go, Sean said he didn't deposit $1,000. That's why we pulled the $1,000 from your account. And I go, bullshit. Look, here's Sean's he's doing a selfie with the date and da-da-da. And that's why you do all that. So even if the AML laws and KYC laws were abolished, you're still going to need to do all these things, because you need to win against Sean. When Sean says he didn't do a deposit, I need to build a case with the chargeback to basically say, well, no, here's a selfie that he uploaded. Here's his device, his same iPhone, blah, blah, blah. And you're basically trying to argue the case that you were you behind the computer and not some, bullshit artist. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100% it does. The point that you're making a little bit earlier is like the banks don't want crypto people as clients because they have the money in there and then it goes out straight away. They're never building assets up under management. But why is that an issue now? The fractional reserve banking, their requirements is 0.
Which one?
Like with fractional reserve banking.
It's sort of like saying, McDonald's can serve bodybuilders and weightlifters, but they're not going to shop at McDonald's all the time because they're not the right client profile for Macca's. Macca's is looking for different types of customers, right? They're not going to build a business on serving bodybuilders shit food because bodybuilders won't come back. In the same way, banks have got different customer profiles. Crypto exchanges and stuff are a pretty bad one, or not. Brokerage services are a bad one, but for example, stable coins and stuff like that, and most custody services are going to be brilliant. So you want these banks, they have a chance to become custody partners if they start custodying these valuable assets. Why wouldn't a bank custody the most valuable asset on the planet? I'm not sure why. They should be. This is the bank's best friend waiting. It's like they've got to wait. The bank has an opportunity to stay relevant in this future paradigm that we're going to, in my opinion. So I think they've had their own wires crossed. And initially, from 2013 to sort of 2019, obviously there was people didn't want crypto companies and stuff, and they were trying to not be favorable to them. But just the unit economics of the banking component for some of these brokerage services, I can see why the banks aren't rushing to serve them. At the end of the day, if you're a very expensive client to have, because crypto, by the way, and Bitcoin is the number one target for hacking, fraud, chargebacks, because nowhere else is the money going to be mine. So if I steal your bank account and send it to myself, or my Westpac account, or your NAB account, or whatever it is, they just trace that back and they reverse the funds. But if it's Bitcoin, then I'm scot-free and I'm out of there. And so that's why they're like, well, this is really bad for us because it's very expensive, because they just get, so many targeted attacks. And so I understand why banks aren't rushing to serve everyone in this market, but the unfavorable efforts that they've made has just been a slaughterhouse. Like no shortage of a slaughterhouse, literally. A company's going bankrupt. Obviously, my company gone. There's a lot of things that go into banking is so important to running an efficient business, and reliable banking is so important to running efficient business. And you never really realize this until you don't have reliable banking, and you go, my gosh, you feel like a leper, someone diseased or something. No one wants to talk to you. No one wants to hear what your pitch is. No one wants to know about your company. And all you want to do is serve customers and try and help make Bitcoin a thing. You're trying to get excited about it and help other people get involved. So I think it's a big own goal from the banks. What an idiot. And I don't know who's leading the charge on it, but guys, it's the wrong way. Read the room sort of thing, They've obviously gone, I reckon, roundabout the wrong way. So anyway, I think they've definitely there's definitely a huge room. This is why I think this is one of the most exciting things ever. But Trump will come into office and he's going to make it the best version of America we have ever seen. It is going to be pandemonium of excitement. And I think part of that will be banks have to get on board with figuring out how to serve these customers' rights and really enabling them. Because if Donald Trump's trying to push, capital gains, no capital gains, all these kind of things on Bitcoin and stuff like that, and he wants the reserve asset, obviously the banks are going to have to start getting on board too. So they're going to have to start using it as a reserve asset. I think where everything comes down to, though, is no matter what you do, whether you abolish laws or anything, the payment methods need to be sorted out. So the problem with payment methods is when you make a deposit, so I make a deposit, I buy something on credit card from you, I've got 90 days to reverse that. So when you go to, why can't I just put a credit card down and buy Bitcoin? Because it's fucking 90 days that you can call your bank and say, hey, no, I didn't do that. So obviously, every payment company effectively becomes a short-term loan company, and they're underwriting you for a short-term loan. So every time you buy Bitcoin with a card, every time, not sometimes, not maybe times, every single time, that company is basically giving you the benefit of the doubt for 90 days, if not up to 180 days. And so obviously that becomes incredibly inefficient, Sean. Think about how distracting that is for an entrepreneur to have to solve this legacy identity problem just because it's a broken system, instead of actually building or adding value to the protocol or to custody and innovative solutions. People are just spending all this money just to get their head at parity, just to take a payment. Right. And so not only that, so now we've got this huge risk component, right? So I deposit I buy $1,000 worth with my credit card, huge amount of risk. You've got to underwrite me for 90 days. Not only that, your margins are tiny. So your margins are going to be 1%. You can't charge me 25% to buy $1,000 worth of Bitcoin. That's criminal. Well, so you charge 0.2% or 0.3%. And so you see all these companies that charge a fee. They need to, because they're underwriting you. And it's like, oh, what jerks and stuff. It's like, guys, these guys are in the hurt locker for 90 days. The moment they see you show up at your door, it's a 90 days like, please don't fuck us over. Please don't fuck us over. That payment reversal period. So I think the targeted attacks from banks and stuff like that is one component. But I think the other side of the coin is actually really need to operate a good funds model and figure that out, because America doesn't have a really at least at the time when I was operating in there, it wasn't like ACH had 7-day reversals. In Australia, we've got OSCO and PayID. That's really aggressively a good funds model. So a lot of our exchanges have all had much better deposit method, like faster and more efficient deposits. So we're quite lucky. Australia's got a very, very strong banking infrastructure in terms of like payments. As we're in America, it's like no bank talks to each other and this and that. And it's like, it's a shit show. And everything comes with so much payment reversibility that basically every company needs to be, every payments company, not some, every single one of them, they're a short-term loan company. Because when you're making 1 cent as a margin, then you live and die by your fraud chargeback rate. So because someone buys $1,000, I only make $10. If I'm charging you 1%, I'm only making $10 on that. Now, if you go, I'm going to reverse that payment, well, obviously that's going to take $1,000 out of my account when I only made $10. So that trade becomes very unfair to the merchant, which is the exchange selling you those coins or whatever. And this is the root of everything. This is why it's hard. This is why it takes time. This is why you can't send coins out of your account straight away when you buy them or whatever it is. In America, a lot of the times when you would buy Bitcoins, you would buy them and it would sort of say like a delivery date. So you'd lock in the price and buy it, and then it would wait. You couldn't send them out of your account for 5 to 7 days. And I don't know if that's still the case. It probably is with some limits. That wasn't a money laundering thing. That was literally a fraud prevention thing, because they need to hold the asset before you can run away with it. So we've got to wait for that payment reversal period to clear, and then I can go, okay, cool, you're safe, because I know you're not going to rort me because the payment reversal period is passed. Does that make sense? Sorry, I know this is a lot. I've sort of been shooting from the hip, but does it make sense?
Yeah, it does, Michael. And the reason why I ask is because you do have a real-world lived experience with running an exchange. So when it comes to subject knowledge expert, this is you. So let's flip gears. Saylor, his 3-minute video that he's put out, I think is like 3 minutes and 21 seconds. Dude, it's insane. 44 slides in 3 minutes is like 14, 15 per minute. I'm like, this is just too good. Like, this has to be AI. It's just incredible. It's just like bang, 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 bang. But
it wasn't an ounce of fat on anything. Yeah.
Not at all. Whoever edited it is just pure signal for 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Number one, like MicroStrategy under Michael Saylor's leadership has been buying billions and billions of dollars. He's bought like over 100,000 coins in the last couple of weeks. Yep. He's buying right now. Literally, he's buying right now. If we can go off the signal that he's sending, adding more green dots.
Yeah.
Like, I guess number one, why is it important that there's people like Michael Saylor trying to orange pill big companies like Microsoft? And then why is it important for a company like Microsoft to actually start putting Bitcoin on the balance sheet when they've got, what, $80 billion in cash?
Yeah. I mean, remember, Microsoft doesn't own Microsoft. The shareholders own Microsoft. And the shareholders, they want the best outcome for money. They want the most money and the best outcome. Right now, there's fiscal irresponsibility. They owe it to their shareholders to look at it. The more cash you have, the more liable you are going to be if things go bad. So if you're Apple and you got $200 billion of cash and you totally ignored some very powerful asset that is quite literally the antidote to the problem that the entire world is experiencing, everyone is in a war against debt. No one's got any bullets that can kill them. No, can kill debt. So the only thing against it to escape that is something to do the opposite of inflation. So it deflates. So I think they have a corporate responsibility to every shareholder to get on board or to figure it out. Right now, their money is melting. On a good day, 7%, bad day, 18%, 15%. The more money you have, the more you stand to lose. And because Bitcoin's digital, the velocity that will go through in terms of
transactions. You're frozen. If you can start, all good. If you can just go back from a bad day.
Bad day, yeah. So, you've got a 5% bad day, a 5% to 15% inflation, depending on your measurement stick, right? And so that means at minimum, we're losing 5 or 7% a year, minimum. That's the best case scenario is we only lose 5 to 7% a year. I don't know what shareholder would vote for that. So right now there's a disconnect between the shareholder audience and of all these companies, and obviously the boards, because the boards are obligated to follow what the they kind of got to work with the team that they've got, which is all the shareholders. So I think the shareholders need to be very vocal, which is starting now, as we're seeing. So Microsoft is entertaining the idea. MicroStrategy, Michael Saylor's already made the effort to go and help them. Michael Saylor's doing such a fantastic job. He's like like a really good salesman. Like he's the best representative that the company's got, basically, in terms of if Bitcoin was a company, he's the number one sales guy you send in to close the deal. That's how I think about it. And he seems like, he's learning too. Like he's learning this strategy as he's doing it, but it's sort of coming to fruition. And I think right now, people need to, these teams of publicly traded companies need to start doing it before it's too late, because, and I don't mean this stupidly, they're literally going to run out of Bitcoins. The government, you can't have 200 governments buying 1 million coins. That doesn't work. You can't have 200 governments buying 200,000 coins. That doesn't work. Mix that with every person in the world. Mix that with every company in the world. Just take the total amount of cash on balance sheets in the top 200 companies. You probably see that all of that's going to end up at Bitcoin or very close near Bitcoin. Whether that flows into MicroStrategy or it flows into BlackRock's ETF, or they do it directly themselves, the exposure is necessary now. It's not a nice to have, it's necessary. And we're seeing, MicroStrategies outperform everybody because they chose to strap themselves to a rocket ship. And they said, you know what, we're going to back this coin because it looks like a good dude. The data is very supportive of it, that this thing's going to be resilient and reliable for a long time. We're willing to go on a Bitcoin standard. And so now when I look at the market, I will see a lot of pre-Bitcoin standard companies. And I think that's actually what people are going to start skating to. Like that's where the puck's going. If I'm not going to buy the companies that are already Bitcoin standard and operating because they've already achieved so much growth, then I'm going to look, well, who are the next 10 probable companies to go on a Bitcoin standard? Because when they do, I'm going to experience the same level of, rocket ship growth relative to their assets. So it really does. It feels sort of scary, but I don't know that the urgency is there. I can see obviously Michael Saylor smells the urgency. That's why he's just buying like it's going out of fashion. But he's taking money that's not worth anything and converting it to money that is worth something. So that, I'm not a rocket scientist. Michael Saylor actually is, though. But you don't have to be a rocket scientist to do this. So, and that's what he's saying. He's like, even though he's a rocket scientist, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to do this. And I think it's very generous how forthcoming he is about how to make the most of this opportunity. Many hands make light work. Everyone. I think the more work that he does to sort of evangelize this Bitcoin standard, the safer all the other companies are. Now, why would a company want to go on there? I'll tell you why. We want some companies' products. I don't want these companies to go broke. I like their products. I like supporting them. I want to buy their products. If they're making good products and they're adding value to my life, I don't want it for free. I want to pay them. But if you're bankrupt, I don't get the product. So as a selfish person, I'm saying, do I want Apple to stay in business? Damn straight, because I record my runs on my watch and I don't want this watch not to appear. Whatever it is, right? But, I think there's a lot of companies will go broke actually from not going on a Bitcoin standard, because this is the life raft and we've hit the iceberg already. I don't know who can survive in a world without Bitcoin that's a hyperinflating world. And that just feels like a really hard task for any company to succeed in. Companies the jobs of a company is to create something of value and deliver it and then grow on that. Like keep expanding on that. If they're trying to figure out how to save their money or how to keep the same amount of money that they've got from last year because it's in this, this melting bubble or something, like, they've got their money and it's like, how do we keep the same amount as last year? Now they've got to become hedge fund traders. They're not a hedge fund trader. You're making an Apple Watch. Focus on the Apple Watch. Focus on the design. Focus on the quality. Focus on the battery life. You shouldn't be distracted and have to figure this out, just the same way that every human being shouldn't have to. People gamble a lot more now. They have to take chances because there's, a disconnect now between their money earning and its preservation of value. And so, this idea of catching up, everyone's got this feeling of having to catch up. And it's like, that's not cool. Everyone should be doing whatever's important to them, not trying to figure out how to, it's like playing Temple Run. You remember the game on iPhone, Temple Run?
No.
I don't know. Anyways, basically there's an old game and you're running from this monster, but you're always running from this monster constantly. It's just always behind you. That's what inflation, or that's what basically our economy is right now. Unbelievable. It's like this persistent monster that's just breathing down our neck. all day, every day. When you wake up, when you go to bed, when you're brushing your teeth, when you're having a shower, it's there on the back of your neck. How are you going to make money? How are you going to keep your money? And fortunately for Bitcoin, for big people in the space of Bitcoin, it's a blessing because now you're on a Bitcoin standard. You watch everything get cheaper by the day. Like, it's literally like having a star in Mario Kart. When you're driving along Mario Kart 64, whatever, that's literally what it is. It's a shield. No green shells are going to hit you. No blue shells. You're fine. That's what Bitcoin is. It's like your security team on your money, making sure no one fucks with it. Part of my language, but yeah, I think it's a blessing. I genuinely feel like I'm blessed to be, in this space as early as it is. If this is the building of, the pyramids or whatever, and they're going to last for thousands of years, what a privilege it is to be here, like this early, to help add a block to the pyramid, whatever it is. That's special. We kind of complain a lot, and we do have a lot to complain about because some things aren't going our way in the world today. But what if we take stock on some beautiful things that we've got? And we're lucky. Things are good. Things are so good and exciting. And the more we're all leaning into it. Everyone's leaning into it. So as that happens, it's going to just prosper. Like, we don't know what the idea of living life is if we took money out of the equation, and it's not the constant stress or the constant 40-hour weekly commitment, and that dynamic changes. I mean, long humanity, get real long on humanity, because we are about to crank out some really cool stuff. People have clear heads, safe thoughts, happy thoughts, good thoughts, optimistic thoughts, the ability to critical think. The noise will go down because the voices and noise is so associated with all the things that your body and mind needs. So food, water, shelter, money, whatever. Money's this artificial one that's been rammed into the needs stack. And you're like, well, I don't get it out of the box. You get oxygen out of the box. That's mad. I don't have to think about breathing. Imagine if you had to think about every time you took a breath. That's money. We're about to put money into the same category as breathing, which means it happens subconsciously almost. Now, what happens to the human mind when it gets back all that time and energy to think about stuff that means, only things that you find important or special to you or whatever? I think you're going to see a huge amount of purpose. I think we're going to see a huge amount of optimism, with a couple of bumpy trips along the way. But it's all good because we're all so hopeful for the future that we're all happy to pick each other up along the way as we're fucking up. Like, even these banks, they're going to get on Bitcoin standards. Yes, they got off the wrong start, but there's a lot of money to be made there, and they can empower the whole industry. So they're going to get on board eventually too. And it's going to be fantastic for them. BlackRock, take a look at them. Fidelity, take a look at them. Best performing product of their life. Yep, that's what happens. You kiss Bitcoin, it's like a genie from a magic lamp. It's going to make all your dreams come true. Like, that's cool. That's exciting. This is optimistic shit, because if they fell flat on their face, let's say BlackRock fell flat on their face with the product that they released, then obviously that would be such a sting for everyone, because it's like, the appetite was there, But now it's like a no-brainer. Oh, hi, we don't want to have the most successful ETF product ever. And it's only going to get bigger because the asset's swelling like crazy. So not only are people piling into it, the asset's going to swell. So it's like an exponential, compared to gold. Gold can't go up 50%. So even if it had the same velocity of input of people buying the gold ETF, it's still going to get dwarfed by Bitcoin because the asset gold is so much more mature and hardened in terms of its market cap or its relevance. Bitcoin's still so mature. So yeah, you just get so much out of the box. And I know people say, oh, Bitcoin's boring and it's slow. Shh. No, just slow down. Maybe you're thinking too quickly, Oh, you need it done before 10 minutes. You need absolute certainty done before 10 minutes. You can't wait 10 minutes. That's a you problem. That's not a Bitcoin problem. Yeah. I need it now. I need it now. That's saying we don't even know what we need. So no one knows what they need anyway. So I think it's important. I think, anyway, sorry, I think I'm just so long at the moment, dude. Like, I cannot tell you just the optimism I've got in my soul. Like, I really feel it. Like, it's like, I just think it's going to be a slam dunk what's coming in 2025 and the innovation. They're really going to breathe life back into America entrepreneurship, I think. And it is going to become, like, I can imagine it being like a Singapore, Hong Kong, sort of Dubai level favorability of, supporting whatever it is, like basically making it easy for people to find success, which it once was. But obviously, these things, people make missteps along the way with new technology. Some countries miss it. Some countries get it first, whatever it is. You roll with the punches, and it seems like they're doing a real good a really good self-reflection to say, well, hang on, we did drop the ball here. Like, as a country, we shouldn't have been like this. This is terrible. And cleaning house on that. And it feels like that attitude's there. And I'm so pumped for that because I think they're going to do a really fucking good job. And so that means it's going to be awesome. You know, money's just going to flow straight into this digital world. Yeah, it's going to be awesome.
I completely agree, mate. And just like on Saylor for a minute and MicroStrategy. Yeah. So like he's going out and he's evangelizing Bitcoin. He is the Bitcoin evangelist. It's a good bloody book, Brian D. Mint. But when he's doing that, anytime anyone else, like say Microsoft buys $80 billion of Bitcoin, then the next time MicroStrategy goes to buy Bitcoin, it's going to be more expensive. So like if we were to think about it from a greed point of view, there should really be no incentive for you to talk about it, for myself to talk about it, or for Michael Saylor to go and like push this, or David Bailey pushing it with Donald Trump, a strategic Bitcoin reserve, all the work Dennis Porter, like everyone's doing in this space. Like it would literally be in our best interest to say nothing, get as much as we possibly could for say like the next 10 years and then start pushing that
message. Be as selfish as possible.
Absolutely. So like what is it about Bitcoin in particular that once people put in, you know, like 500 hours, 1,000 hours, you can see it and it switches and they just push it and they don't stop talking about it. And they want other people to buy it, to push up the price so it's more expensive for them. Like it doesn't really make any sense from the way that I grew up in the fiat economy. Like what are your thoughts, and like why is Saylor doing it?
Well, you know, if you have free drinks at a party, you still want many people at the party because it creates a fun time for everyone, right? Rising tide lifts all boats. And I think that's probably the saying I go with Saylor, a rising tide lifts all boats. And so by Saylor outperforming so aggressively, there's some level, I think people keep like play their cards close to the chest with like opportunity when they're unsure that the opportunity will be real. So now the more concrete they get understanding Bitcoin, the more they know it's the right choice. Okay, I feel okay now. I can just basically, you know, talk to other people about, I can share about it, get other people on board. I've done my homework. I don't care what anyone says. They can laugh at me, but I feel confident in my knowledge now. And I think when people get to that point where they truly see the opportunity and they truly back their own knowledge, that's when they can start actually sort of, you know, recommending it to people because they feel confident in the decision, because they're confident in the thought process and the critical thinking. I also think it's really important because community is really important, and you want people, if you want great products to exist, you want to see the company succeed. If, like for me, family and friends, they're the most important people in the world to me. So you want to make sure that they're on a Bitcoin standard, or they're getting close to a Bitcoin standard, or you're still peppering them, even if they tell you to shut up. Well, I'm just saying this because I know it's going to help you one day, or it might, or I feel like I've done my part by telling you. You know, I might not have sold you, but I've done my part. I don't feel, you know, horrible if I'm, you know, if I find fortune from this, but I didn't help you along the way. So I think it is something that Bitcoin really sort of, it unifies you as well. And that's the thing. It's like you speak the same language as someone, quite literally, just like a language. It's almost like a value language or a value framework. I suppose that's what a protocol is really. And so the Bitcoin protocol is like a value framework. So it's like almost like Satoshi is the deity of capitalism if it were a religion, you know? It's like that's sort of where it's going to. And so, yeah, I think people really start learning, oh, this is so good, everyone has to know about it. It's not in the spirit of Bitcoin's ethos and essence to be to pre-mine, essentially, right? Bitcoin has no pre-mine, and Satoshi demonstrated that. And so in the same way, when you're sharing a good thing, you don't want to feel like you've been sort of sitting there piling it in secret, being like, ha, 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 sucked in, now there's none left, and I'm the only one you can buy from. You know, you want to be vocal about it to get everyone in. And, you know, I think Saylor has a lot more to gain from, and everyone has a lot more to gain from sharing and bringing other people in. You know?
Like I agree. Do you think maybe also like a bit of self-guilt comes in? Because like it doesn't take very long after buying Bitcoin, the number goes up. And obviously it doesn't come easy. You have to read the books. You need to put in the proof of work to be able to understand it. But like, say I was to keep all that knowledge to myself and I wasn't to share it, and fiat wealth, you end up leaving your job, your whole life changes and stuff, and those people could then come back and be like, oh, you just got lucky, bro. But do you think by telling people about it the whole time, it's sort of mitigating a little bit of that risk? Because then you've now given them the opportunity to get lucky themselves, and they can't come at you, be like, I've told you about it for the last 4, 5, 10 years, maybe in your situation. Do you reckon that's part of it?
I think definitely that's massively part of it. People want to tell people about it because, especially after, usually it's like when people have a run up in something, so it pops up and, or they go through their first bull market. If it's your first bull market and anyone's listening to this, just the velocity that this thing moves at, you've never felt anything in your bones like it before. There's nothing that can match the mania of a bull market, like a massive running Bitcoin. Like, I don't think. And when you feel that, like, it's like you get really good shots on goal. Like, it's like you get a taste that your critical thinking is going to pay off. You get this confidence, like, oh my God, this might be the super asset or whatever. And I think people like telling people, 1, to join, 2, to share knowledge because it's helpful. You all only learn from the community. Every single thing I've learned, everyone, all community, all for free. Never paid for any courses or anything like that. And, you get to see, like, in different seasons of Bitcoin, like we're in, the 4th halving, let's call it season 4. The educators today are different to the educators that, say, I had when I first started. And that's like, and that will be different tomorrow and different for the next one, bull run and stuff like that. But, the educators today, people like Michael Saylor and stuff like that, and he's educating a different audience. And back then we had people like, Eric Voorhees was very vocal and he has a fantastic voice early on. Andreas Antonopoulos, like, dude, you drink every single piece of content that dude's ever done. Such a fantastic speaker. Like, he's, borderline like a university professor and or a very good teacher. Like, I just think his work's been exceptional. I miss him, actually. I wish he was still around. Keep him cranking, but, he's got great content out there. So, yeah, there's something to be said for it's a team effort, and you do strengthen the network by telling your friends about it because that increases the chance that someone's going to be another node on the network. And the network strength is only as good as the diversification of the nodes. And so every time you talk about it, you increase the probability of a new node coming online. That's exciting because these nodes, they're the little soldiers standing around our pile of money or our coins, telling everyone to back off. That's what they're doing. Stand there with their gun, And so they're the guard dogs, basically, which is great. Yeah. Well, they're guard dogs in a way, but they keep the integrity of the network, which keeps the integrity of my coins, which keeps the integrity of the wealth, yada, yada. So it's a flow-on effect. But, yeah. And I think part of it as well, it's like, when let's say you compete in sports and you compete at a state level, you're going to have competition with the rival from the other state, sure. Now, when you guys both go to the Olympics, you're both in each other's corner, helping each other because you're playing for the same team now. You're both on a country's team. Bitcoin has that same level of unification where it's like, this isn't about my country or your country. This is about Bitcoin and our Earth or our species almost. And I think there's something about that makes you feel part of something much bigger than yourself. Very much like a religion, which a religion is just a value framework, a framework for values. It's like how to think or how to conduct yourself. I don't think Bitcoin's very far from that at all, if at all. And so, yeah, I think we're all unifying under these same common values. Whether that's we don't like special treatment, which is, say, for instance, no pre-mine, or we believe that work must be done in order to verify something, and versus a staking something, proof of stake versus proof of work. People that are in Bitcoin, they're going to have a problem with proof of stake because you can pay to play. It's like playing video games where it's like Boom Beach, and you can buy like all the good tanks if you have an in-app purchase. It's like, well, I mean, sure, the richest guy wins it. The richest guy's got the biggest base, the biggest army, because you just keep smashing the purchase button. And so that's why these sort of freemium style games just end up just pay to plays, basically. And I think a proof of stake sort of close to that. But, a Bitcoin person is going to have different values to a person that loves Ethereum, probably, just because otherwise they'd be in Ethereum if they didn't, because these things are value systems. They've got a specific set of rules, which we call a protocol, just like 10 commandments or whatever. Same. I think. That's how I look at it anyway. No clue if I'm right, but definitely sort of look at it from that direction.
One of the points you made earlier, like comparing it to religion, Bitcoin for me has been like a deeply spiritual experience. And I think probably the greatest takeaway for me is it is a lesson in critical thinking. It's something that I was never taught, but by being forced to look at nearly every aspect of the world, because money touches every aspect of the world, it allows you to see so many different things that we're misinformed about. There's misinformation, disinformation, and a lot of the time from mainstream media. Not all the time, it can happen from the space as well. But by like having those open conversations, discourse, and actually like disagreeing and get into arguments with people, it's like really opened my own mind. I want to talk about like running our own node. If we don't get to it, because I want to get into the strategic Bitcoin reserve asset first, please, everyone, just run a node. It's not hard. It's beneficial for yourself as somebody else. And I'd like to touch on the BitX because you've got a cool story. But before we do, like the strategic Bitcoin reserve, it's sort of like the MicroStrategy playbook, sort like on steroids.
Yep.
There's been rumors, and I've speculated for quite a while, that the United Arab Emirates is buying Bitcoin. Like we've already seen Bhutan secretly mining billions of dollars in Bitcoin, or like one point something $billion. El Salvador's added it. The IMF. So El Salvador's added it as like a legal tender, and the IMF like warned, and they had such a slander campaign and saying like El Salvador's fiscally irresponsible. Now that they're in massive amounts of profit, the IMF hasn't said anything, and it's really like allowed that country to be able to break free. What happens like game theory wise when, or if, because it doesn't happen until it's happened, that Trump actually makes Bitcoin a strategic Bitcoin reserve? What's the outcome of that decision?
So obviously huge price movements and stuff, but what you're going to see is, I would say, if Trump makes a strategic reserve, every single country will. So firstly, I actually don't think it's a if. I think it's a 100% certainty you will. I think every country will have to follow suit if they want to still be a country. They won't be able to otherwise. Remember, if you're buying Bitcoin and it is the strongest, biggest country in the Western world, America, and that's their baby that's going to get them out of debt and bring them out of this hellhole that they've been in called, $36 trillion of debt. It's going to save America. If you save America, you're going to be pretty favorable. Like if you support the guy that saved America, America's probably going to be nice to you in a world global sense. So if you are a Bitcoin person and supporter, and this thing is the one that took America out of the grave, then I think it's in every country's best interest to be very favorable and supportive of Bitcoin, because it's going to do a lot for America. And people that don't play nicely with Bitcoin, they're hindering America's bags, literally. So it's like dumping on America. It's like you wouldn't do that because you want to keep a relationship with them. So if they're going to have a strategic reserve, it means everyone's going to have a strategic reserve. Because they want to be speaking the same language. If they want to do trade and stuff with America, some people will try to be heroes and they'll say, no, we're not going to do that because we've overthought, we're smarter than that. And they'll be wrong. And then they get washed out in history. But, like for instance, Australia, I would 100% in a heartbeat do the whole Bitcoin reserve for Australia. 2 seconds. We could smash it out of the park. It'd be easy because at the end of the day, you are trying to onboard someone to Bitcoin, right? Like that's what you're doing with a strategic reserve. You're onboarding a country. So you know how to onboard retail. You know how to onboard businesses. How do you onboard a country? And so basically, it's sort of, this is the conversation now. It's the third tier, retail, corporate, and then government. It's insane though. It is wild. I'd say everyone should be friends with Bitcoin. And look, this is. You can see the difference in ceilings of opportunity between, let's say, something like Ethereum versus something like Bitcoin. Like, it's a novelty and a joke to even consider that Ethereum would be part of a strategic reserve because it's too manipulative. Like, if it's a proof of stake system, the government knows how much power they've got. They know that they can coerce this if they had to. Push comes to shove, they win every time. Now, proof of work, they can't. That means each government now doesn't have to worry about the other government trying to fuck them. Do you know what I mean? Because if we're all on a network that's attackable, then we just want to hope that all the other guys aren't going to attack our network. No, they don't need to think about that, or they don't want to have to think about that. So they build on the strongest bedrock. And so, yeah, I think wild. Like, it's actually, I literally have to pinch myself. Like, I sent you a thing about like talking about being Bitcoin reaching parity with gold from a while back. It's just fascinating to think that we're in the wheelhouse now where that's actually coming up to a thing. Like, we're probably 4 years away from that, if not less. You know, getting to $800,000 or $900,000 a coin, that would be in the next cycle, if not, you know, some people say this cycle. But, you know, that's 4 or 5 years away from that.
Yeah.
It's all turning into reality. And the critical thinking, I think one of the things with critical thinking as well, because you custody your own coins in Bitcoin, or that's the premise of it, self-custody, you know every single step in the path that you've created for your custody to unlock your coins. And that is that's like watching a movie frame by frame. Okay, you open this app, then what do you do? Then I pick out my pen out of the safe. Then what do you do? Then I go down to the place and I unlock that box. Then what? And it's a very specific, but it must be modular, meaning you must have frame by frame every single step of the way. You understand every single attack vector, risk, or anything at every point in signing and transacting with your coins. That level of critical thinking is really, really powerful. So security underpins everything we do every day, like money, but more important. It's the only thing that would be like more important than money, and that's security. Because if you don't have security, you don't have anything. And so security is clutch, and that's why Bitcoin's attracting governments, because it's the heaviest. You can't break it. And if I'm a government trying to plan for the next 100 years, I'm probably going to build it on something it can't break. And you know, you look at. I was thinking about this the other day, but Benjamin Franklin. So you know what he did when he died? He gave $1,000 in his trust in a compound interest account. He put $1,000 in, or whatever it was, $2,000 to Philadelphia and maybe Louisiana or someone. And I don't know if it's Louisiana, but Philadelphia and some other state, or Boston. And he said, you can only open it in 200 years. It's stuck in this compound interest account. And so sure enough, after 100 years, there was conditions on Benjamin Franklin's word that he said, after 100 years, you can take half out, and then you can use that to pay for homeless kids, schools, or whatever, education. Yeah. After the next 100 years, have at it. Anyway, so here we are past the time lock. So that's sort of the old school version of a time lock. But he was trying to show delayed gratification. That was the whole premise of what he was trying to show, you know. And I think Bitcoin is teaching us that now in a modern twist or a modern spin. But, you know, Benjamin Franklin knew what was up, and that dude sits on the $100 bill. Like, ain't no motherfucker that knows more about money than that dude. They call him the old school Satoshi. They call it the Benjamins. We call it Sats. They called it the Benjamins. Like, yeah, it's just changing the guard. But, you know, we got to remember he had out of his value system. That's a very powerful story that no one told me until 3 months ago when I was Googling shit about him. And I was like, how is that not talked about? What an incredible endeavor. What a strong mind to think, yo, everyone shut the fuck up pardon my language, everyone shut up for 200 years, and then you tell me if I'm wrong at the end of 200 years. But until then, I'm right, or whatever, you know? Like, it's just very powerful stuff. And obviously the communities, they benefited tremendously from it. You know, they've had, you know, literally been able to give back to their community. So I think there's a really big lesson in there that people are just not thinking about enough, I think. Delayed gratification. Bitcoin teaches us that. You know, it teaches us to try and pursue that. We all fuck up, and we're human beings, right? We're not a protocol like Bitcoin. Bitcoin's a very robotic protocol, but we're human beings. So, you know, we can try and closely align ourselves to it, but we've got loose edges and stuff. So, you know, we'll make mistakes, but we'll figure it out. And I think it's sort of just an iterative process where you're getting sharper and better and more interested and more willing to listen and, you know, expanded horizons and all that sort of stuff. Now, sort of yapping a bit now, sorry, but you know, like, it really does do that. I feel like I just don't give enough gratitude, you know, like how I just feel like, dude, it's life changing. I can't imagine if someone said that Bitcoin didn't exist now, I'd be like,
screw that, man. Oh, man.
I don't want that timeline. I like this timeline. This is a great one. I know it's not perfect. I know the world we've got a lot of problems, but let's just book the win. We say thank you. You know, we've got a lot of problems, but what are we thankful for? It was Thanksgiving the other day. It's great. I'm thankful for Bitcoin. And I really am, because it's sharpening a lot of minds in the process. Bitcoin doesn't require physical labor. That's what fiat requires. Bitcoin requires mental labor. So You're used to doing the physical work to get the financial gain, but now that's changing. So you're going to do the mental work to get the financial gain. And that's the kind of people, almost one of the weird things with Bitcoin is people feel like they're not doing anything or enough. They're getting away with it. Like almost like, oh, dude, this is unfair. It's a cheat code. And literally to the point where people call it a cheat code. And it almost feels too good to be true. I heard a great saying. I think it was Knut Svanholm. He said, Bitcoin is too good to be false. And I think that was actually a banger because it is like literally it is too good to be false. It's just, hey, anyway, it's unbelievable. I'm sorry to cut it short, by the way, mate. I've just got to. I'm about to good. Right? Yeah, and sorry, I'm glad to chat and thanks for having me on. And yeah, it's exciting times. And if you're not excited, get excited for Christmas. And if once Christmas is over, then get back excited for Bitcoin. Make 2025 the year where you do the work for Bitcoin. It's going to be America's 250th birthday. They are going to bring the absolute mega opportunity builder. Like they're going to go crazy with it next year. 250 years old, America. And it's ironic, actually, now think about it. Like that is the year. Do it. Do yourself a favor. And your family a favor and your friends a favor by investing your time and effort into understanding something. It's not easy. No one's there, but there is a million hands, all of them willing to pull you up. There's a million hands waiting to pull you up. Parallel. What's that?
Parallel. Oh, dude, it is such a good book. Brian D. Minnitz's second book, but it talks about like once Bitcoin's been built, like which it has now, the parallel economy, and it's just a system that's better based on truth, trust, and like how it benefits everyone. And even if they're still on fiat standard, when more and more people are in Bitcoin, like how it changes the world, makes it better for everyone. Dude, I won't hold you up. Stay on the call just until I end it. But everyone, I've put Michael's links below. Michael, you're an absolute legend. Thank you so much. And check out the last video. Michael is time locking Bitcoin into the future, publishing the public keys. It's absolutely insane. Love your work. Love who you are. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much for having me, mate. Appreciate it.